That's terrible.
In my opinion, that sucks.
Welcome to another episode of Talking Busch. This is the Busch League season wrap-up edition. I'm your host, Derek Hartman. I'm joined by two fine gentlemen tonight. It appears the third co-host decided that he didn't want to talk about the Busch League, Busch Bowl. I can't understand why that would be, but John Thompson will not be joining us tonight. I am joined by Phil Bastron. Phil, how you doing tonight?
Hey, how's it going? Doing great. Just back here in the old Southeast after a good holiday trip through the Midwest. So happy to be
Very
back
nice.
back on Talking Busch.
Very nice. Came out healthy out of the bit.
Healthy out of the bit. Yep, feeling good. So back hunkered down here. I think we're going to get some snow tomorrow, apparently. Projected for maybe up to 3 inches down here in North Carolina, that's apocalyptic in North Carolina. So it is. That's a legitimate shutdown. So
All right.
yeah. We will see how that goes.
Also joined tonight by Matt Train. Matt, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Same shit, different day over here.
I hear you guys had a little COVID scare over the holidays.
Yeah, we did. We had Melissa tested positive for COVID with no symptoms off a test that was precautionary before we went to have Christmas with her 80-year-old dad. So that was kind of a bummer. 10-day quarantine for her. And then since I didn't have a positive test, it's a 14-day quarantine for me after the end of the 10th day, after her last day. So 24 days for me.
24 days of quarantine.
Yep. So today, what is it? Wednesday. This Friday will be 17. This Friday will be 17. Next Friday will be 24.
Yikes.
Yep.
All right.
Yikes.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been tremendously different, but you do underestimate the value of like going to the grocery store.
Think about the extra fantasy football research you could have been doing if this would have happened a month ago.
That's true. That's true.
I don't think it would have mattered at that point for him.
2 months ago. Maybe 2 months ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's push the calendar back. Yeah. Melissa, you should have tested positive in October. That would have really helped the Train household on this fantasy football season.
That's exactly right. I still kick myself for not getting Gio after
you know what? It wouldn't
after
have
Mixon went out.
It's not like he was a stud. He had one good week.
I know, but still, it's a stupid thing for me to have Mixon.
You gotta compare that against Matt Train's running backs. And
True. I played Gio a lot of weeks, and I got one good week out of him and a lot of misses.
Yeah. Yeah, Mixon was a similar story with Mixon. So.
Yeah, for sure. That Cincinnati offensive line, not great.
You hit on Jonathan Taylor at the wrong time, Train.
Yeah, God dang it! I averaged like 145 points a game in the playoffs.
Think about if you would have had a Jonathan Taylor roster in the playoffs, you were golden.
I was by far the best team the last 4 weeks of the season, by far.
It's
crazy.
Beat Max with Kamara.
Oh. I think so. I don't think he had. I think aside from Kamara, which seemed to be actually the case with a lot of people that week in my other leagues. I don't know about you. The people with Kamara lost in a lot of cases that I saw. There were some other huge weeks that
seems hard to fathom.
Yeah. It was in my Tiny Joe league. The guy with Kamara was in the championship, and he held on by like 6 points or something like that. I mean, it was really close. And he had Mahomes and Kelsey and Hopkins, and I mean his roster was
Kelsey, Hopkins, and Kamara.
Yes.
Yeah, he should win.
Goddamn.
Yeah,
That's it. I don't think Kamara was necessarily the key to victory this year, like some other players may have been. So.
Yeah. My close call, but didn't happen. I lost by 0.4 in my semifinals matchup. The Steelers were playing the Bengals, and he had the Steelers defense. The Bengals are driving down the field at the end of the game. They don't really need points, but if they score a touchdown, I win the matchup, and if they do what they did and kick the field goal, I lose by percent or tenths of a point.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the next week I did have Kamara. I also had Tom Brady, who only played the first half and lit it up, and Mike Evans, who had a huge game. So I scored 200 in the third place game.
No.
Yeah,
Was
that was great.
Was that championship game a pillow fight game like ours?
It was absolutely. It was like one, not maybe as bad. It was like 110 to 100, and we have one extra player.
Sure.
So like maybe like a 90s score in the 90s for our league, but yeah, not a big scoring game, and so the fact that it wouldn't have even been close. The third place game I was up because some games were on Friday and Saturday, and it was kind of funky. I was up like 140 something to 0, like nothing like spotting your competitor 140 points.
Yeah. God.
But yeah, third place. Like a lot of us here on Talking Busch, the Vikings also missed the playoffs this year. That would be 4 out of 7 years under Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman.
Not a particularly impressive NFC North during that stretch either. I mean,
no,
fine, right? But not like there's been some dynasty team in the NFC North.
No, there's been a few years where the Packers have been down.
Yep.
Obviously, the Bears have struggled, and the Lions.
The Bears had one good season,
really,
in that 7-year stretch, and that's about it. I mean, sure, the Packers have Rodgers, but it's not like they surrounded him with dynasty type talent.
Yep. This is not the unbelievable Super Bowl Packers teams that we maybe saw in the 90s or whatever. So
for sure,
I think it's time to start thinking about what's going on here with the Vikings, but I would defer that to the Vikings experts on the call here.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously been a negative person in terms of this regime. I believe that they are exactly what they've been. They're a about 500 team. They're like a Derek Hartman Busch League team. They like to squeak into the playoffs. They like to play strong defense, keep the games low scoring
until it matters, until they get into a big game, and then their defense can't stop anybody.
Yep, sounds about right. But no, I just don't think that they're good enough or will be good enough under the current regime to ever win a Super Bowl. It's almost a joke when you look at the records, like against 500 or above teams, and just the eye test. When they play a good team, they just melt.
Yeah. I haven't watched the Vikings enough this year, so if this is a bad take, feel free to jump on me here on this. But I think you would expect the Vikings defense to be a staple of the team, given the coaching staff and some of and Zimmer's strengths and things like that. The offense has been pretty solid, I think, this year, right? I mean, Cousins has been what Cousins is, but you've got an MVP caliber running back. You've got the best rookie wide receiver, right, in the history of the NFL. That's fair to say, right? So, the offense has been certainly, I think you could at least say, fine. So
you also have a 2,000 total yard guy and like 16, 17 touchdowns or whatever Cook had,
Yeah, exactly, right? So what is going on with the defense, right? I think that's what may be the missing piece. So I don't know. I'd be curious to get your take on that.
The Zimmer defense is built on good coverage guys, a lot of talent in the secondary, and getting good pressure on the quarterback. I mean, that's his kind of go-to. And you had almost no experience at cornerback this year. On top of that, you had injuries. Plus, you never had Danielle Hunter for an entire, or, he didn't play at all this year.
Yeah.
He was gone the entire season.
Yeah.
On top of that, which I don't know how important the linebacking core is to a Zimmer defense, but the Vikings linebackers are pretty damn good. You ended up losing Eric Kendricks second half of the season, and Anthony Barr was out early on as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they went into the season thinking that Mike Zimmer can mold the defense to be competitive, and I think that you saw that he's not capable of that. I'm not saying that he's a bad coach, but it took them 5 weeks to get the defense to be not the worst in the NFL, which is fairly embarrassing.
Yeah. And I think NFC North offenses ended up being better than maybe what they thought they were going to be, right? Like you look at Aaron Rodgers had a resurgent year. So
yeah, maybe MVP type year.
Exactly.
It's going to be close between him and Patrick probably.
Yeah, and the Bears were fine on offense. Trubisky ended up being fine, right? So it was like you kind of came into the year where the NFC North was maybe going to be bad on offense, and all of a sudden it was like, well, nope, we actually need a defense to cover these offenses.
Yeah, and Zimmer, I mean, they like to draft corners a lot. None of the corners that we've ever gotten have come in and really been good. I mean, it takes all of them a few years under that system to be serviceable defensive backs.
For sure. But you had to know that then,
Yes.
I
think well, we went out and got that guy from Jacksonville, and I think that was the last ditch hope to say, God dang, the secondary isn't going to be very good. We need to get after the passer. And then you didn't end up getting Danielle. The guy from Jacksonville didn't plan out very well. And then you lost, Kendricks, your rock right in the middle of your defense. And then it was just like, well, you can't throw up your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you saw a little bit later as the season went on, Zimmer was finally like, okay, maybe we should try something different. It just took way too long for that to happen. And then obviously late, kind of that middle resurgence when they actually won some games, got back to 500, the defense was respectable, good, but they were respectable. And then again, at the end of the year, they were just god awful again. Obviously they didn't adjust again as teams adjusted to them.
Yeah.
So
what do they get? 14th pick, is that right? 14th pick in the draft.
I think that's right.
That sounds right. Right around that neighborhood, 14, 15, 16. I know they were right in that general area.
In the chat window, Todd T asks Urban Meyer ? In purple and gold.
Yeah, if the Wilfs want to pan up some money, I'd be all over that. It's not going to happen. But yeah, absolutely.
Who is he's rumored to be
Jacksonville.
Oh, that's right.
Which makes a ton of sense, honestly. They're going to have a young team. He can swipe in for about $12 million a year because they want to obviously put a winner out there now that they're going to get Trevor.
I hate Urban Meyer. I don't know. As a non-Ohio State Big Ten guy, I think you just have to hate Urban Meyer. So I do.
Is it? I mean, I think about all the guys that have came out of college to coach in the NFL, and there's not a lot that I can think of off the top of my head, but I don't recall really liking any of them. I freaking hate Pete Carroll. I hate Pete Carroll. I don't like Urban Meyer either. I don't know. In my opinion, I think part of the issue is that the college game is just a dirty game. And those guys that run those programs seem like dirty people. That's what it seems like to me. Pete Carroll skipped town right when that entire freaking thing blew up at USC.
Sure. Yep. Well, Nick Saban, I mean, takes the job, struggles a little bit, announces that he will not be the Alabama coach. And the next thing you know, he's has the most dominant program of all time at Alabama. Bobby Petrino with the Falcons, just flat out quit like 3 games into the season, and went back to college. Yeah, it's not always successful.
What's the guy from
not
Florida?
many.
Spurrier. Spurrier was no good.
The old ball coach. He's a likable guy though. I hear you though. It's not been proven, that's for sure. Matt Rule in Carolina right now came from Baylor last year. I don't know if he'll pan out.
Supposedly that offensive coordinator at Carolina now is getting head coaching interviews, and he was
know who that is?
What's his name? I can't think of it. Yeah, Joe Brady, right? So, and he was like the quarterbacks coach at LSU. Like
he was co-offensive coordinator, but the other co-offensive coordinator was like 80 years old. Okay. And so this guy basically brought in the new offense to LSU. They completely changed it. And obviously it took off last year. They had 10 kids drafted off the offense or whatever it was, ridiculous. Yeah. And then he went to the pros. I do think he'll be a head coach, and I think it'll probably be soon.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's definitely the trend in the NFL, right? Is find the next guy.
Yeah, and I think even more importantly than a great leader is obviously important no matter what. But if you have a great leader that can also scheme your team to victories, like that's huge. Kyle Shanahan was getting the 49ers wins this year, and they had no business winning. They were just depleted. So. Matt, any thoughts on maybe positions that the Vikings need to go after or anything kind of this offseason?
I don't know how you can't pay some attention to that secondary. Obviously, the offensive line has been an issue for a long time now. The defense seems like more of just because the offense played pretty well this year. I mean, Dalvin Cook had a great year. In pass protection, they were not always rock solid, but I think the reality is that in pass protection, there's not that many great units in the NFL when it comes to pass protection.
And when you have a statue at quarterback, an absolute statue,
right.
who just breaks down in the first second of pressure, that's tough.
Yep. And so I think you got to pay some attention to the offensive line in the draft, but your early picks, I almost hate to say it, but it might be quarterback again. It might be in the secondary.
They I think they're desperate for a good defensive lineman. I know Hunter will help if he comes back. Yeah. If he comes back healthy. I also think that's a big if when you're talking neck and back injuries. But their defensive tackles were god awful. I mean, there was never any pressure up the middle. There was hardly any resistance to the run game. A defensive tackle would be huge for that team. Let's talk a little bit about teams that are in the playoffs. How about those Chicago Bears, Phil?
I saw something online today that was called them the worst team ever to make the playoffs.
What? A 7-9 division winner.
I was going to say in the same year that a terrible Washington team made it, and they didn't even deserve to make it because Philadelphia benched their quarterback.
It should have been the Giants. Should have been the Giants at 6-10.
So I mean, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I don't necessarily know that I would say that they quote unquote deserve to be a playoff team, but it's they got a few things going, and I don't know. It's the NFC, and I think they'll be out when they deserve to be out.
How big dogs are they this weekend?
Oh man, good question. I don't know.
Who do they have? New Orleans?
New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans. So I will say I think New Orleans offense is very good. I think their defense is a little bit overrated. I haven't seen New Orleans play a ton late in the season, but man, I drafted New Orleans defense, I think, in the draft, and they were my defense at the beginning of the year. And
good for you.
Oh, terrible for me, beginning of the year. Those motherfuckers got me like 4 points or less like for the first half of the season, to the point where I had dropped him. So I'm like, I don't think that defense is really as good as maybe advertised. So
I mean, it's a good thing that the Bears, juggernaut of an offense can really threaten them deep.
right.
Deep
Yeah, I
passes.
mean, they've got one weapon here, right? So it's Allen Robinson. If you can shut down Allen Robinson, you'll probably be fine. So,
Yeah.
I good on the Bears for getting in the playoffs. I'd love to see a Bears Packers matchup round 2, but that probably won't happen. So
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the Saints are really truly that good. I don't even think they're that good on offense. Drew Brees cannot throw the ball.
Yeah.
He's done, and he's even admitted that he's done.
Yeah.
So if you can stop the run, which the Bears can, especially if Akeem Hicks is on his game.
Right. So I'm looking at the NFC bracket here, right? So, and this half of the bracket is the Packers have a bye, and then it's Bears Saints. The other half of the bracket is the Seahawks, the Rams, the Washington football team, and the Buccaneers. Like, man, I think this Bears Packers Saints half of the bracket is more wide open. Like I don't know. I mean,
it's not half in the NFL. It's not halves of the bracket though.
They
'Cause
realign.
do they realign that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, regardless,
So if,
I mean,
if the Bears win, they will play the Packers.
Okay. Yeah. And
But if
and
the Saints win, they
Packers are
will
a
not.
tough out. Okay. Packers are a tough out, of course. But like I don't know. I'd just as soon play the Saints as I would the Seahawks first round.
I agree.
Yeah.
And the truth is, the Seahawks aren't that good either.
Right. Yeah. Seahawks are vulnerable.
The Vikings should have beat the Seahawks.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing with the NFL playoffs, right? Is like you need a chip, a chair, and a chance. So it's
it's who's ever playing best.
Yep.
Yeah.
I honestly think on the NFC side, I hate to say it, but I think the Packers are the most dangerous team by a pretty wide margin. And
I have the one kryptonite, Tampa Bay.
yeah, that was gonna be my next one. Tampa Bay with Tom Brady.
Mhm.
Don't trust the Saints. Don't trust the Seahawks, and the rest of that bracket is.
If Tampa can get through, I'd love to see them and the Packers play.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would not be surprised to see the Saints lose. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Seahawks lose. I'd be a little surprised to see the Packers lose, right? Like, so I'm expecting the Packers to get through that. Otherwise, I think it's anybody's game in any of those matchups. So
For sure.
I give the Bears an equal chance against any of these teams aside from the Packers. So who knows?
Yeah, for sure. How about the AFC side?
I love me some Bills, man.
Yeah, the Bills are rolling.
I fucking love me some Bills
Yeah.
right now.
It's a fun team.
How about Steph Diggs just tearing it up the last few weeks?
And if Justin Jefferson wasn't so damn good, I'd just rip the Vikings for that. But he is, so good.
Yeah,
news
it
for
worked
them
out for them. I
figuring
mean,
that out.
they needed the cap space and whatnot. But
good for Steph Diggs too. That's a match made in heaven. That's. Man, the Bills are just rolling, and I just love.
He got what he wanted. No question.
I love just the Bills like aura.
The mojo.
Oh yeah, I just fucking love that shit.
Well, I remember hearing when that trade happened, when Stephon Diggs was being Stephon Diggs and being all kind of like crypto complaining. Just wait until Josh Allen is throwing you the ball.
Yeah,
it's so true.
Just
I
wait
said
indeed.
it.
Just wait indeed. Holy cow. That guy's
I said it. And going into this season, that was a fair statement because Josh Allen was one of the most inaccurate passers in the NFL.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Different story this year.
Yep. I mean, that AFC side is pretty damn good, though. Look at, the Bears, for comparison, the Bears are the 7th seed in the NFC. That team's not really scaring anybody, right? The fucking Colts are the 7th seed in the AFC.
I know. The
AFC
AFC is much. Yeah.
I would not want to play the Colts right now, right? And the Bill, so the Bills are playing the Colts. I wouldn't bet money on that game. And you look at the Browns Steelers.
Is it Titans Ravens?
Titans Ravens, Browns Steelers. Like
Titans Ravens is like two legit teams that could go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Matching up in the first round.
Yep.
The Ravens ran for 400 yards last week. 400.
Yeah. Now that being said, I mean, give me the Chiefs if I'm a bet.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's if I'm picking any teams, I'm picking Packers Chiefs, right? But top to bottom, those AFC matchups are extremely interesting this week.
Yeah. That's a stacked playoff bracket over there. There's a lot of good teams, a lot of teams playing well right now. And Josh Allen, by the way, obviously 13-3 on the year, 4,500 yards passing, 37 passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
Yeah, that's a damn good year.
Indeed.
I said he was gonna. In my mind, I said he was gonna have a really good year, and then I talked myself out of it before the draft.
Oh, and by the way, by the way,
I was like, yeah, he probably won't. He's probably one of those guys. Yeah, he's getting hyped up too much.
Eight rushing touchdowns as well. So that's a 45 touchdown season for Josh Allen.
That's huge.
But I will say though, I had Josh Allen traded for him, Leonard Fournette, so not a lot of skin off my back. And in the meat of the season, when Mixon went down, he struggled for a little while, and then he turned.
He did. They hit a little lull midway. They were real hot early.
Yep.
Him especially. They hit a little lull, and then they've just been roaring the last about 5-6 weeks or whatever it's been.
They went to week 5. Starting week 5, they scored 16, 17, 18, and 24 in 4 weeks. And he didn't play very well. And then obviously towards the end of the season, they picked it up significantly. But
cool for Kevin Stefanski. Really.
Well, not great that he got COVID.
But he got COVID, right? So he may miss the playoff. Crazy.
Not may. He's going to.
Is he going to? Is that going to happen? That sucks ass.
They're also missing. They're also missing their Pro Bowl left guard, who's got COVID.
And he's been with
them. Been there through.
Yeah. Yep.
He went 1-31 in two seasons with the Browns. So you go through all that and then you miss your playoff game.
Yeah, bummer.
Yeah.
Which game are you most excited about this weekend?
I'm I have a little bit of Colts fandom in me. So I think I got to go with that Bills Colts game. I really like the way the Colts are playing right now. Obviously Jonathan Taylor's carrying the rock really well. Phillip Rivers is having a good season here. And then the Bills are a fun team to watch. So I'm really intrigued by that Bills Colts game.
Yeah, for me, it's either Bills Colts or Titans Ravens. I think those two games.
Yeah.
The first round in the NFC honestly doesn't it? Obviously, Washington football team with Buccaneers, that could be a blowout. And Seahawks and Rams, I don't know. I think those are two okay teams, but it just doesn't. I don't know.
Is Goff going to be back? What's the deal with Goff?
Coy. I'm assuming no.
The quarterback that filled in for Goff was a Wake Forest alum. Former Wake Forest.
Played in the was the AAF or XFL or something?
Yeah, John Wofford or whatever. He went to Wake Forest. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Arizona quarterback that was playing him this week was from Minnesota.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he transferred on the field because he couldn't be transferred out of the program because he couldn't get on the field because the big bad Mitch Leidner was in front of him. Not great.
Yeah. That was a dark period for Gopher quarterback play.
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. Back to the question. I agree with you, man. I go Ravens Titans. That's like an old school knock 'em out, sock 'em like football game. John Madden would love that game.
Mm-hmm.
There might be like 500 yards rushing in that game. it's gonna be fun. I hope it's just a crappy weather game and they're just running.
Yeah. Yep, that'll be a good one.
Phil, what's your Super Bowl prediction?
Well, okay, I got it. I unfortunately have to take the Packers on the NFC side. Just like we just talked about. I think they're a pretty good team. Aaron Rodgers is playing as good as just about anybody. Oh, yeah, I'm copping out. I'm copping out. Packers, Chiefs. If I'm picking two teams, those are the teams I'm picking.
Matt, who you got?
If I could get odds on it, I would pick against the Chiefs in the AFC. They played a lot of close games. Patrick Mahomes, obviously still Patrick Mahomes and can kill anybody at any time. But he hasn't been great this year. They've played a lot of close games.
Yeah, I've watched a little bit of Chiefs. A lot of pressure on him. Their line is not as good as it's been, and that's definitely hurting him.
I'm going with the pick from my heart, and I'm going Bills out of the AFC, even though Josh Allen is super raw and young yet and might crumble in the playoff pressure.
Really bad last year in the playoffs.
Yeah,
really
that might
bad.
I think I could get behind some Packers Titans too.
Yeah, that was probably my other one that I was looking at. I like the Titans. I don't know what happened to the Steelers. I mean, the wheels just completely came off, and maybe they'll. I mean, they're obviously battle tested.
But so are the Titans, right?
Yeah.
Titans are pretty battle tested. They were in it last year. They can carry the rock. I can get behind that too.
And the Steelers lost to the Browns last week, but I think the Steelers were playing backups. And it was a close game. I mean,
they had a chance to tie it with a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe the Steelers get right, and because I mean, obviously they can compete with any of these teams. So maybe they get right. Big Ben gets hot, but yeah, I'm gonna kind of go the fanboy take. I'm gonna take Bills, and I'm gonna go Buccaneers on the other side because fuck the Packers.
Woo! I also like the Buccaneers as long as they don't have to play the Saints. The Saints completely have their number, but if the bracket works out and they don't have to play the Saints, I think the Bucs can do it. Especially if Mike Evans comes back and is healthy, that offense is starting to click, and their defense is good. Actually, for NFC teams, their defense is good, which is not a common thing. In the AFC, I think I still like the Chiefs, and having a bye when those other teams are gonna have to slug it out, I think is actually huge.
Yeah.
The Titans or the Ravens, whoever comes out of that game, they're gonna be beat up, is my guess. Those defenses are gonna be tired. While the Chiefs defense sat at home and rested, that's big. So I think I still do like the Chiefs. So I'll go Chiefs over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I'm officially changing my pick. Packers Titans son. I'm liking the Titans. I talked myself into it.
All right. I was going to discuss a little Gophers basketball because they've been having a pretty darn good season, but I'm just peeking over here and they are currently down.
Oh my gosh. Points. What the heck happened?
I don't know. They had 26 at halftime and they have 32 now. So that's not good.
They were down
6 at halftime.
Yeah, they were down 6 at halftime and now they're down by 30. Oosh.
I think they're an NCAA team, but they can't win on the road, and that's not good.
Did you see the NCAA tournament setup?
I did. All Indiana. How you feel about that, Phil?
It's pretty cool. I like that a lot, actually. I think that's if there's one thing I know about Indianapolis, having lived there, is that they certainly know how to host sporting events. And Indianapolis will host most of D1 plus Bloomington and West Lafayette, and then actually Fort Wayne is hosting D3, and Evansville's hosting D2. So the entirety of championship basketball is going to be in Indiana. So I think that's pretty cool.
That is a celebration of Indiana heritage. That's for
Oh
sure.
yeah, God, I love that. It's
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
and honestly, if you think
I think
about
it makes a
old
ton
time
of sense.
basketball, it's perfect.
I think it makes a ton of sense too, right? Like, so if you're a tournament team, you can get a hotel in the Indianapolis metro area. If you have to play up in West Lafayette, that's a hour drive. You can do that. You don't have to leave your bubble, whatever. If you need to go down to Bloomington, it's an hour drive. It makes a lot of sense from a travel perspective. So I like it. I think it makes sense. So it's cool.
Yeah, and two of the college basketball arenas that are on my bucket list are Hinkle,
Hinkle's awesome. Yep.
which I'd love to go to, and then of course, I'd love to go to an Indiana game.
Yeah. I've not been to an Indiana game. I've been to a game in Hinkle though, and that is very cool. That being said, I'm not 1,000% sure we're going to get to the tournament if I'm a betting man on it.
You think they're going to go through a little struggle here?
Man, it seems like every week we're getting games canceled in basketball. So, and I know football was like that early on too. So hopefully they figure this out. But I think
the vaccine is coming, Phil. Don't be a doomer.
These indoor sports are tough, man. And I look at track and field, like, so we've got indoor track and field coming here this month. If I'm the powers that be in track and field, I'm hoping that they just cancel indoor and just look to outdoor.
So you mean like pull a Minnesota?
Yeah, exactly. Basically this year, that's what I wanted to have happen. So
Todd T weighing in on the chat. He's got Bucks and Titans.
Yeah,
So
the Bucks are a popular pick for sure.
Yeah,
it's hard to bet against Tom, and God, I hope Rodgers chokes.
Yeah, I would love to see that as well. I'm gonna be real honest though. If my money were on the line, it would be on the Packers. Coming out of the
What
NFC.
if Rodgers throws about 3 picks? A couple of them are poor decisions, and
when
they decide.
When was the last time Aaron Rodgers ever threw 3 interceptions in one game?
I don't know.
Has
it may have
never
never happened
in like his 15-year career.
Maybe not. He doesn't throw interceptions, but what if he does?
Gosh.
And a couple of them are poor decisions, and their GM just decides that's enough of Aaron Rodgers. It's Jordan Love time.
Well, that would be quite the good luck.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah, that's like breaking up the Bulls. Breaking up the Bulls dynasty.
Yep. Jerry Krause it. College football national championship is this coming Monday. Alabama is playing Ohio State. Ohio State thoroughly dominated Clemson in that game, and Alabama just destroyed Notre Dame like we all thought they would. I do think that we have the 2 best teams in college football. I honestly thought Clemson would beat the crap out of Ohio State, and that was nowhere near the case.
Go
ahead, Phil.
Well, so I agree with you. If we were talking about this 4 months ago and we were saying who are the 2 best teams, I would probably have said Alabama and Ohio State. I have a problem with Ohio State in general. And I don't think they deserved to be in the position that they're in. And that's, and it's no fault of their own. They wanted to be playing the whole time. Again, I think the Big Ten deserved to be punished for the way they handled this season. And I don't think they deserve to have a team in the playoffs. And so, in my opinion, I was rooting. Normally, I would root for the Big Ten team. I was rooting for Clemson in that game, and didn't work out. But
I don't know, Train. This sounds like a guy that lives firmly in ACC country.
I do live in ACC country, but I don't. But that being said, I work for a school that's not Clemson, so I normally would love to see Clemson lose. But I just, I think when you look at the way that conferences handled this season, the Big Ten couldn't have done it more poorly.
It could have been the Pac-12.
Aside from the Pac-12, but that's 4th out of 5, right? And God damn it, I did not want to see a Big Ten team in the championship, and here we are. So that's fine. It's fine. I don't see how you can justify having a fucking 7-0 Ohio State team in a championship game. And I like Ryan Day. I really do like Ryan Day. I don't like Urban Meyer, but I do like Ryan Day. I think he's handled this really well. But I can't justify having a team that played freaking 6 games all year in the championship game. And the only reason that they're in this position is because of their logo, which is ridiculous. And you look at teams like, to me, you look at a team like Cincinnati, and maybe some people think this is ridiculous, but they won 10 games. They completely dominated their conference, and they weren't even in the discussion. They were 9th in the country.
Yeah,
it's insane. I have lost all confidence in college football playoff rankings. So I have never been a expand the playoff guy. Now I am like, we need a 16-team playoff because I have no confidence that they're putting the best product of this season into the playoffs. They're putting the top brands into the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I actually totally agree with you, Phil. In this case, I do think Ohio State is the second best team, or maybe the best if they beat Alabama. But
like I said, beginning of the year, if I had to pick who are the 2 most talented, best teams, Ohio State's in that conference. Like certainly, for sure. But I don't think they made that case this year.
Yeah.
And I just don't think they should have been in the playoffs.
Yeah. If they expand to 16, my biggest worry is there's going to be about 7 SEC teams.
Yeah.
And the Cincinnati's, or, they'll let one group of 5 or whatever in. But Coastal Carolina had an amazing year this year, and they beat good teams. They beat BYU. And they ended up, what's their bowl game that they get? They get to play another group of 5 team. It's like, what do you got to do? Let them go play some crappy SEC team and kick their ass.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm a little bit disenfranchised by the whole process right now. I just, if this is the way it's going to be honest, then let's just put Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and whoever the next best team is every year into the playoffs.
Yeah,
that's the way it really should be. Then, if that is the message that I think has been sent this year.
Yeah. Let's talk a little Busch Bowl 18. The Soup du Jour took on the West Cannon Coyotes. And in the biggest pillow fight Busch Bowl of all time, Soup du Jour comes out victorious, 84.72 to 81.76. You heard that right. 84 points won the Busch Bowl. Matt, how does that compare to other Busch Bowls?
Well, we're updated with all the most recent information on bushleaguemn.com. And so this is, let's see here, Busch Bowl 18. And honestly, you look through the list and I have adjusted points throughout the website. The Busch Bowls are not adjusted points. The most recent game that was somewhat close was Busch Bowl 12. Which would have been 2014. John Thompson beats Adam Hartman 103.7 to 83.3. You go all the way back to 2004, and I'm gonna defend myself a little bit in saying that it was a different time in scoring, fantasy football scoring at the time. But I scored 46 points. And Trevor scored 164.
It doesn't sound that different.
So that was I think that's actually the largest margin of victory in any game in Busch League history, and it was in the championship.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
But yeah, there's 2005. I then squeaked my way to a championship, 103-87 over Tim Lang. After that, boy, you look at winning teams: 129, 117, 153, 120, 155, 159, 165, 138, 130, 140, 132, 121, 121, 123. I mean, it's we've had pretty high quality play in championships by and large in our history.
Yeah.
And to have two teams struggle like they did, I mean, those teams were the top, I think, 10th and 11th scorers that week in the entire league.
Yeah, that's crazy. The truth is, I really truly think they were the two best teams.
I agree.
Totally agree. I think kudos to Trevor. 10-2 season. This is a very good team. And if you look at the roster that he drafted back in August, right? So Aaron Rodgers, that's a great draft pick. Kenyon Drake sucked for half the year, but really carried him for the last part of the season. Was a good player.
For sure.
Sucked in the championship game, but was a value added player for him. Wayne Gallman was a great pickup. Sucked in the championship game. DK Metcalf carried him for most of the year, and then just sucked in the championship game. So these are not
was a top 5 receiver.
Exactly. So these are not bad players that he had in his lineup. They had a shitty week, and everybody has shitty weeks, right? So, and I remember, I'm going to toot my own horn here a little bit. I said when we were projecting the outcome of this game, I said, part of the reason that John gets up on everybody else is he's got a better tight end, and that's not going to be the case when it comes to Darren Waller versus Travis Kelce. And Darren Waller scored 25 points in the championship to 18 points for Travis Kelce, and that ended up being a difference, right? So,
yeah. Oh, good for you.
Oh, good for me. I know.
Yeah, even Tyreek Hill scoring 14 it was a letdown this year. Tyreek Hill had 19, 18, 15, 16, 14, 23, 28, 21, 51, 11, 24, and then 14. That's a season. That's a hell of a season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, even you look at the 49ers defense. We talked about the defense briefly before this podcast. I mean, they obviously had a really terrible game there in the championship, and they've been a bit inconsistent, but typically they're scoring more than 10 points. They're an above average defense. So it's,
yeah,
he had some unusually bad weeks from his team.
Yeah. Both teams could have made decisions that would have made this game more respectable. I find John's particularly interesting. What did John say about 10 weeks back when he picked up this newfangled Buccaneers receiver? I believe he said that he was going to lead him to a championship.
I think I was maybe co-hosting that podcast, and I made fun of him for picking up that receiver or something at that point.
You did indeed.
And he was adamantly said, "Hey Phil, just wait till he leads me to a championship."
That is exactly what happened. And you know what? If he would have played him, he would have led him to a championship. We're talking about Antonio Brown. John was so excited to have him on his roster, and so excited to use him against Phil and for the rest of the season. And what did he do when it came time to put his money where his mouth was? Sat him on the bench.
Added from free agency for $0 by the West Cannon Coyotes.
Yeah. 17.8 points in the championship week.
Did you see
Yeah.
the story about how he needed X amount of receptions to get a $250,000 bonus, and
Yeah.
he got that. That's
I mean, that's pretty common in the NFL.
Yeah.
The Seahawks had
But
the same
literally
thing. They were
those,
supposed to call it kneel down.
essentially those 3 shovel passes would have won John his championship.
Brilliant.
Oh, I wish he was on tonight.
Yeah, but congratulations, Trevor.
And John, rest in peace to your mentions on the Devontae Adams Julio Jones trade. That will go down. That will go down in infamy as a historically terrible decision. What do we know? What Devontae Adams scored this week? Can we get those numbers?
I got it here. Harbin had a big week in week 16.
No, only 7.7.
Okay, so not.
But that 7.7 is the difference because he played Robbie Anderson.
Yep. So I mean, you think about he certainly would have played Devontae Adams. So
Yep,
you're
100%.
talking about three points from Robbie Anderson. So it's a 4-point swing. That, while it's not remarkable, it certainly is enough, right?
Yeah, that may have been Devontae Adams' worst game of the year.
So I was just looking at that second worst game. His worst game was week 2. He went 3 for 36 in week 2 for 5.1 points.
Sure, and I think he was hurt that game because then he missed a couple games.
God, what a dominant season by Devontae Adams! Oh,
holy
my
shit!
goodness.
I'm just looking at his stats. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Wow.
One
wide receiver 2, by the way, right behind Tyreek.
God, was he behind Tyreek? It's hard to believe.
Well, 51 helps.
Yeah, true. Devontae Adams a little bit more spread out. 3 weeks over 30.
Week to week, man. Look at
But
that.
if
He's
Tyreek-
got how many weeks under? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4.
8 weeks
5.
over 20.
He only had 5 weeks under 20.
Yeah.
So if
Think
Devontae
about
Adams
that.
plays the whole season, he probably is wide receiver number 1.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
Missed
5
2
weeks
games.
under 20, except for his 2 weeks that he missed.
And he
So,
left that Detroit
crazy.
game early.
insane.
The really 2.5
Sure.
weeks that he missed.
Sure.
That's the reason that was his lowest scoring game.
Yeah.
Look at the catches. I mean, just every game that he played a full game, he had 6 catches or more.
Yeah. Catches. Look at the touchdowns. Starting in week 7, there's only one game he didn't score since week 7.
Mhm.
Insane.
That would have been the championship, ironically.
Is Travis Kelce the number 1 overall pick next year?
Well, we obviously do.
We
auction.
obviously do auction. So
So is he going to go for the most amount of money?
No.
No. But I
But
mean,
is he
the most
valuable?
valuable? Is he the most valuable player of this season? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Well,
Darren,
I guess
Darren
Aaron
Waller
Rodgers-
made a
Based
dent.
on draft dollars, maybe Aaron Rodgers was this year, or Darren Waller.
According to the war calculations that we did, there were some other names up there. Kelce was high though. I do believe he was top 10.
I mean, it's crazy. You think about I think you're going into the draft next year, and you got to think about that tight end position because
It is a ghost town.
it is ridiculous. And if you're getting legit wide receiver 1 numbers in your tight end position, that's insane. And it's
Yep. And somebody's going to spend. There's no doubt about it. And I don't blame them if they do. Somebody is going to get extremely lucky with tight end like 3 or 4. Either George Kittle,
all right.
or Darren Waller or somebody like that has an enormous year. Johnson last year is a prime example of a guy that I picked up off waivers and was tight end number 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
But
Travis Kelce 4th in total WAR this year.
Yeah, huge.
What were the top 3, Matt?
Top 3 were Dalvin Cook, Kamara, and Henry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that doesn't even count. Do you go through the end of the season, like through week 16 through week 17? Where do you end it when our league ends?
That's a good question.
Because like Derrick Henry had another 250 in week 17.
I think this is going to go through the entire season. I can't
Sure.
remember. I can't exactly remember, to be totally honest. But because Henry, yeah, I don't
Henry's
know.
insane.
I don't remember.
That's insane. 2,000 yards.
He's great, man.
That is crazy.
He's a one. There aren't running backs like him in the NFL.
Nope,
anymore.
there's not. He is to the running back position what Kelsey is to the tight end position, just about. You know.
Do you know what he kind of reminds me of? And this is going to sound like a weird comparison, but he kind of reminds me of Calvin Johnson in terms of the fact that he is just so much bigger and faster and stronger than everybody else that's out there on the field. It's not a fair. It's like he's still playing against college kids.
Right. It's like Shaq in the paint. You know.
Yeah.
I mean? Just cannot physically match up with him.
All right, that wraps up kind of the Busch Bowl and Busch League fantasy season. It was a great.
Congrats, Trevor, man. I mean, I think I've said this on this podcast a few times, but I don't think we've given Trevor enough credit for this season.
Well, I mean, Easton drafted his team, so that makes sense.
Yeah, we all saw Easton draft his team. We all saw
visually
Easton
confirmed
draft
it.
your team. Yes, it's been confirmed. That being said, I mean, this, regardless of who drafted it, the Soup du Jour team this year, 10-2 and a championship, really well done. I mean, that's a very good season in a year where I think it was, it was a fairly even. There weren't like a ton of just ridiculously horrible teams either. So good job by Trevor this year. That was a good championship and a well fought year for his team. So good job. I think he drafted players too that were not obviously going to be like stud players, right? DK Metcalf was a great pick. Tyreek Hill ended up being a great pick. Aaron Rodgers was a great pick. Terry McLaurin, great pick. I mean, just a really well drafted team. Most of the players that carried him to this championship were players that he drafted.
And I'll give Trevor some more kudos. I think with this playoff win, I think that this puts Trevor in the position of the most prolific playoff team in our league's history. He's got the most playoff wins. His winning percentage in the playoffs in the 12-team era is 700, including 2-0 in Busch Bowls. He's got 3 championships, which ties him for the most. He's got 11 playoff wins, 14 if you put the Busch Bowls in there. Hartman has similar results because he's been to the playoffs more times. And if you really turn back the clock, Tim Lang is nearly as successful. He just hasn't made the playoffs much in the last 10 years. So I think if you're going to put a Joe Montana tag on somebody in this league, it's probably Trevor right now.
Good job, Trevor.
That's who we're going with.
Well, it's a playoff thing, right? It's specifically the playoffs.
All right.
Sorry. What is more appropriate?
Well, not Peyton Manning, but I would maybe say Tom Brady, or is Adam Tom Brady, because he makes the playoffs every year, and then wins a bunch of games but loses some.
Yeah, I don't think that the thing about Trevor is he hasn't been dominant, like he hasn't been dynasty dominant the way that Hartman has. But man, watch out for him in the playoffs. This kind of thing.
Yep. Good job,
All right.
Trevor. Well drafted team.
Yep, good year,
Really good.
Trevor. We'll have to talk. I'm going to get the trophy engraved. It's finally leaving my mantle. Lisa was celebrating profusely when I missed the playoffs, which didn't really seem right, but she'll be very happy to get rid of that. Trevor, it's now Kirby's problem.
And John also. John, good season. I think it's a good strategy drafting Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And, it costs you a lot of money in the draft, and it's a bold move to do that. And generally speaking, it paid off, and he did a good job in the free agency market, and he turned around a kind of a shitty start. So good job on John's part too.
For sure. Let's play a little
Busch Light.
or
Busch League.
it's a skull edition of Busch Light or Busch League this week. I am going to name 6 names and give my predictions of whether they will or will not return as a Minnesota Viking in 2021. And you will call me out as being right or wrong. First up, I have starting safety for the Minnesota Vikings, Anthony Harris. He is not going to return as a Minnesota Viking in 2021. Would you say that's
Busch Light.
or
Busch League.
My gut feel is that is Busch Light. The only thing that gives me a little bit of hesitation is that Zim just does not like to let his guys on defense go. Harris is still, I mean, he's not a spring chicken by any means, but he's young enough that he's still going to be serviceable. And Zim just doesn't usually let go of guys. Didn't have a great year this year, but guys that have been productive, he just doesn't like, at this point in their career.
I was gonna say Busch. Busch Lee. What did you say, Train?
I said he will not return.
Yeah, so I was gonna say the opposite. Busch Lee. Busch League. I think we're gonna see some pretty big changes on the defense. So I gotta believe we're gonna see some restructuring there, and I would think a guy like that would maybe be fodder to be replaced.
Yeah, he had a bad year, but watching the Saints game when Alvin Kamara just rolls over him about 5, 6, 7 times, it was clear that it was over, and I don't think that Zim's gonna watch that tape back and be like, I need Anthony Harris back. We'll see. Zim does love his guys. Train, you're 100% right there. But I hope that's one that they say that they can find somebody else in that position.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, the other safety on this roster is Harrison Smith. He has a huge cap number, but I'm saying Harrison Smith will return as a Minnesota Viking in 2021. Would you say that is
Busch Light.
or
Busch League.
Yeah, I think that's Busch Light.
Busch Light.
He's a pillar.
Yep.
Of that defense.
You don't trade your studs or get rid of your studs. I mean, he's a legitimate NFL stud, right? So who are you going to get to replace that guy?
Andrew V in the chat disagrees. Too high cap hit in his estimation.
It's big, and he's definitely slipping. But if they're going to pick one safety to pay, because I think that they would keep one of them and not replace both. I'd pick Smith still, but I don't know. It's a big number, and he's definitely slipping. He's missing a step. We'll see. Next up on the list, linebacker that missed most of the season, number 55 on the field, number 55 in my heart. Anthony Barr will not return as a Minnesota Viking. Would you say that is
Busch Light.
or
Busch League.
How old is Barr?
upper 20s? He's played 7 years now.
I don't
That's
have a
a
lot
tough
of
one.
opinion on this one.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So Anthony Barr, speaking of huge numbers, Anthony Barr has a huge cap number. And even when he plays, he's not that productive.
No, for the position he plays, he really hasn't been all that splashy for quite some time.
Exactly. And I know Zimmer loves him to death.
Yeah. That was his first draft pick, wasn't it?
I think so. Him and Teddy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm gonna say I think Barr goes. I don't know. You just don't. It's not like Kendricks, where Kendricks plays in the middle. You know what I mean? His job is to just make tackles and so
Yep.
and plug up the middle. Barr is supposed to be a playmaker at the outside position, and he just isn't. He just hasn't been for a really long time. He's a solid linebacker, I think.
For sure. I'm not saying he's a bad player.
Yeah.
But he is paid to make splash plays. He's paid to get sacks. He's paid to get interceptions. He's paid to break Aaron Rodgers' collarbone. I mean, that's what he's paid for. And yeah, it's not happening. And obviously this year he's hurt, but that's my guess is that he doesn't return with an enormous number. But we shall see.
Andrew Vogt saying, in his estimation, Barr does a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet.
That's what she said.
It sounds like he's heard that line before.
Okay, he said they say Barr does a lot of things. I gave Drew more ownership in that than he was wanting to take. But
all right, next up on this list is your kicker, Dan Bailey.
Oh God.
Obviously struggled through the second
half
of the season.
He's
Dan
out.
Bailey will not return as a Minnesota Viking.
Busch light. Busch light could not be more Busch light. We've talked about it on this podcast before. Zimmer ruins kickers. He has thoroughly ruined Bailey and is done with him. I cannot see a player on this roster that Zimmer is more done with.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know.
Yeah,
especially at that position, you have to not suck on this team.
Yep.
The truth is, I honestly think Dan Bailey comes back and finds legs for like 5 more years as a good kicker.
Yep,
Probably.
but with somebody else, right?
But
that's what you mean, right? Yeah. So I think he's not so good that Zimmer's willing to put up with him anymore.
Yep.
He'll draft somebody in the 6th round and be like, we'll take this guy.
Yeah, I mean, Spielman might take a long snapper, a kicker, and a punter in the next draft.
Yep. I'm not saying that's the right strategy, but that's the strategy that Zimmer seems to employ.
Yep. Next on the list is a real true mainstay on the team and in the community, tight end Kyle Rudolph. I say Kyle Rudolph will not return to the Minnesota Vikings in 2021. Would you say that's
Busch light.
Or
Busch League.
Yeah, I think I like Rudy, but I don't think he comes back, especially with kind of the emergence of Conklin towards the end of the season, even though Irv Smith is not doing a whole lot. I think the team's got to move on there.
Yeah, I don't know anything about his cap number or anything like that, but I think it was a bit of a stretch for him to make the team this year and to really play and make a contribution this year. And it was all anything that he made, any contributions he made this year, I feel like were bonus. And it's just kind of like it's time that the offensive's going in a different direction. So
yeah, I want to say his cap number is like slightly less than Jimmy Graham's, but not that much less.
Yeah,
They are both aging tight ends that are overpaid. Rudolph might be in like the 7-8 million range. It's too much.
Yeah, too much.
And unless he's going to come back for pennies on the dollar to be a third tight end, which
and Irv's there, right? I mean, I think Irv's gotten himself there. He's ready to be that guy.
I think it's more likely to be Conklin than it is.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't disagree, Tran. I think Irv has shown splashes with a ton of inconsistency. Conklin? I don't know. He's definitely a better blocker out of the two. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed some ability in the passing game that I was actually surprised that he had. Maybe because they never featured him before, never even threw to him before. But I mean, he didn't look like a bad player. It's just sad that we're talking about these three when there's tight ends in the league named Travis Kelce.
Yeah. Well,
Last one.
Oh, by the way, Drew says 8.8 million on Rudolph.
That's a lot of money.
It's a huge number.
That's not happening, I don't think.
No.
No, he'd probably have to restructure and honestly take half.
Yeah.
Last one, Riley Reef. Left tackle, had a career year out of everybody that says that they know about football. I thought he looked fine, but with his left guard being not great for most of the year, it's hard to tell. I will say Riley Reef will return as a Minnesota Viking in 2021. Would you say that's
Busch Light.
or?
Busch League.
Is he restricted or unrestricted?
He's under contract. They restructured his deal last year to make this year we got to decide whether he's going to be on the team or not.
Okay, so they don't have to compete for him in the open market.
No, but I think he's got a big number too.
I don't think you shoo away offensive linemen that are productive, and
especially this team.
Not on this team, not on really on any team, not when they're from the University of Iowa, which is offensive line U. So
Screw them.
I don't see any reason that you would expect to get an offensive lineman better than Hawkeye Riley Reef.
It doesn't matter what you think.
$14 million in 2021.
That's a big ass number.
That was a big number.
So that's what I mean. They restructured his deal last year, basically to bring them so they could get Ngakoue under the cap, and in return, he wanted a big number for this upcoming season, which he'll either make or then be cut early so that he can go to the free agent market. Smart on his part. It worked out great.
Yeah, it did. As well as he played, he'll get paid. That's for sure.
Yep.
So do you think he makes $14 million in the open market?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But they're
Offensive linemen do, right?
Yeah.
If you prove it, you're going to make it. So.
Yeah, they're going to have to decide if they want to pay it or not.
Yeah, I think Todd T in the chat says you can't give up pieces on offensive line. I tend to agree with that. This team can't afford not to.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how I feel, and that's why I said he'll return. But it's a big number. He better play that good again. That wraps up Busch League or Busch Light. I have a moron of the week.
What an idiot. Oh, what a loser. Good. More for me and you. Man, you are one pathetic loser. You're a moron. Who's this imbecile? I knew.
It's hard to have a podcast on January 6th of 2021 and not talk about this. So what the fuck is happening in this country, in Washington, D.C. today? Like, good Lord.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I was talking to my wife about this today, and my take on this is it is not a Republican versus Democrat thing. It is a stupid person versus smart person thing. And if you are charging the capital of the United States and that's just you're just a stupid person. So I think it's a stupid person versus smart person thing, and I think I'm on the smart person side.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, I don't disagree with anything you said. It's just sad. I don't know. Just a sad state of affairs, honestly. This sort of stuff is honestly, it's enabled by not only Trump, but a lot of the leaders that are being stormed today, that are at their offices and having to be protected by police and all that. And I don't know. I mean, it goes both ways too. I mean, there's plenty of stupid people on both sides, but I just don't know how. I just don't understand
absolutely. The extremes.
Yeah.
On both sides.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just, any type of, I don't know, to me, any type of rioting in this way, it's just like, completely extremist and on just if you are a person that is so influenced by some extremist language that you are reading by some leader on
Facebook
Twitter or
group.
whatever, Facebook or whatever that may be, and there's been plenty of rioting this year that I completely disagree with. So I can't imagine somebody being so enraged by something they read online that they feel the need to storm a building and burn it down or shoot it up or whatever. That to me, that's just, you're a stupid person. So it's not that you're Republican. It's not that you're conservative. It's not that you're Democratic or liberal. It's you're stupid. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah.
I have nothing else to add.
Nailed it.
That wraps up this week's Talking Busch. I'd like to do a couple off-season podcasts, talk a little off-season football, get through the rest of this pandemic. If there is interest, please let us know, and we will make it happen.
All right.
Wrong. That's terrible. You're a moron. Grandma,